The scientists' magicians are at it again, weaving their spells and telling us tales of a powerful force keeping us rooted to the earth. If gravity was such a powerhouse, then birds would struggle to fly. Insects would not be able to use wind to navigate. Monkeys would not climb and jump among trees with ease. Planes would not be able to take off from the ground. Trees would not be able to overcome gravity's pull when their growth towards sunlight and would begin to bend towards the earth the taller they became. And if gravity exists and has the power to bend and wrap the oceans around a gigantic spinning ball, then humans would certainly struggle to lift their arms and legs. Legend has it that an apple fell on Newton's head as he sat under the tree, and this was the catalyst for his great discovery of gravity, which claims that objects are attracted to large masses and gravitate towards their centre. However, when they talk about gravity, what they are actually referring to is the law of density relative to mass.
Today, I'm going to show you a simple science experiment that you can try at home to learn about density. Start by taking an empty glass and tip in some water and food colouring. Then add some syrup or treacle. And I'm going to add a little bit more water to make the layer a bit thicker. Then finally, fill the glass up with some oil and leave it to settle for about 15 minutes. These liquids separate out into different layers because they're different densities and they don't mix. The syrup has the highest density, so it sits on the bottom, and the oil, which has the lowest density, rises to the top. Try dropping different objects in to see what happens. If we drop this metal nut in, which is really dense, you can see it sinks right to the bottom. But if I take this grape and drop it in, it sinks through the oil and water, but sits on the syrup. This is because the syrup is denser than the grape. Pretty cool, huh? Now if I take this plastic bottle top and drop it in, it slowly sinks through the oil and sits on the water. And finally, if I take this piece of sponge and drop it in, it sits on top.
It is a scientific fact, verified by undisputable evidence, that when objects are placed in mediums with less density, they sink, and when placed in mediums with higher density, they rise or float. For example, a rock in water will sink because the object's density is greater than the water's density, as will a ship's anchor. Likewise, helium-filled balloons rise because they are lighter than the air. Submarines float on the ocean when their ballast tanks are empty and contain air, and they sink when their ballast tanks begin to be filled with water. This is how they manipulate their depth in the ocean, by adjusting the ratio of air and water in the tanks. This is proven by filling a balloon with 50% air and 50% helium. As helium is lighter than air and the ratios are even, the balloon remains fixed in the air without rising or falling. Again, much like the Earth's curve and spin, we do not witness smaller objects on Earth gravitating and orbiting around or being pulled towards larger objects. It seems very convenient that gravity's tendency to make smaller objects orbit around larger objects is exclusive to the globe itself and all the supposedly surrounding planets and stars, none of which we can actually see in motion or orbit. Even when you study the claims made by the scientist magicians of the so-called planets and moons, their calculations begin to work against them. As Eric Dubay pointed out, Newton also theorized, and it is now commonly taught, that the Earth's ocean tides are caused by gravitational lunar attraction. If the moon is only 2,160 miles in diameter and the Earth 8,000 miles, however, using their own math and law, it follows that the Earth is 87 times more massive, and therefore the larger object should attract the smaller to it, and not the other way around. If the Earth's greater gravity is what keeps the moon in orbit, it is impossible for the moon's lesser gravity to supersede the Earth's gravity, especially at Earth's sea level, where its gravitational attraction would even further out-trump the moon's. And if the moon's gravity truly did supersede the Earth's causing the tide to be drawn towards it, there should be nothing to stop them from continuing onwards and upwards towards their greater attractor. Ultimately, Newton's gravity erased the common sense of up and down, and in its place normalized the preposterous idea that this is possible. And this. And that meanwhile, in Australia, this is nonsensical, pseudo-scientific mockery and nothing more than an invention to justify the spinning spherical Earth hoax.